So Marzano talks about 5 components of highly reliable school systems. The first, of course, is a safe and collaborative environment. The next is effective teaching in every classroom. Those two things kind of go on all the time. The last two are standards reference reporting and competence-based education. Not even going to talk about those. But the centerpiece is a guaranteed and viable curriculum. All highly reliable schools have a curriculum that's guaranteed and viable, meaning they've narrowed the standards down to an essential lot of standards that they guarantee each kid will become proficient in within the course of the year. And they answer, where am I going? What am I supposed to be learning? What's the absolute essentials that I need to learn to be successful in the next grade level? It's not everything that we're teaching. It's simply what am I guaranteeing kids will become proficient in, the essential standards in other words. What do I want my students to know and be able to do by the end of a course or unit? Which standards are essential in ensuring that all students will be successful in the next sequential course? And is getting 98% of my students proficient in those doable? That's where the viable part comes in. So before you can get into any sort of effective teaching in classroom, etc., you really need to make sure you have your roadmap laid out and narrowed and specific and targeted in order to be highly reliable in getting high achievement and growth results. So the job in developing curriculum is to start by defining a narrowed set of essential standards that you're going to guarantee your students. They're the things you need to know and the skills you need by the end of a course to demonstrate to be successful at the next grade level. They require a lot of hard work, take time, practice, mistakes, and effective feedback in order to master. So you're going to devote a lot of time on these particular standards, and all of your assessment practices will be centered around these essential heart standards. This particular graphic kind of gives you an idea that the essential standards of the heart and all the rest of the stuff that you teach, the supporting standards, are really the arms and the legs. Kids cannot survive if they do not become proficient in the heart standards. They need it for survival in the next course. While you can survive without arms and legs, although it may be a little more difficult. So you're teaching to the top, you're covering everything, but you're guaranteeing essentially the heart so that students can survive for the following year. The essential questions, on the other hand, really get at why we need to know these particular things and why we need to have these skills. They're essential questions, they're big overarching ideas, are really to provoke inquiry and stimulate thought about what it is and how it's connected to the learner. Think of the essential question as the brain as opposed to the heart, which really kind of gets at students thinking, why do I need to know this? Your job is to come up with questions that drive that answer. If you can't make a case for why they need to know it, they're going to be a lot less likely to want to learn it. So that's essentially what your task is. You're focusing on the third element of Marzano's highly reliable schools components. While we know you're working on safe and collaborative environments and effective teaching in the classroom at all times, really these days that we've been working here are focused on building the foundation as you move forward to have a very deep and focused curriculum. For every course you need to develop essential standards, which are the standards that we've been talking about that a student needs to be proficient in the next course. You need to develop essential questions which tie to the relevance for why students need to know the particular standards. From there, you need to go unit by unit and develop the essential questions and essential standards for each unit. So it's going to be an even more narrowed list. And finally, when you're really digging into those units, you need to be able to take the essential standard and break it up into its minute parts that will be put up on the board as objectives every single day. That when pieced together, you finally get to the entire standard. And really the last piece, the last detail, is after you've defined those essential standards and essential questions and you've taken them down to the unit level and you've picked which essential standards go with each unit, you pick apart those essential standards and develop learning intentions. For each learning intention that goes on the board each day, you should be able to identify what you see here as corresponding success criteria. In other words, how many items, how many things do I need to be able to demonstrate for you to be able to see or hear to know that I'm proficient in the learning intention? It's essentially a checklist in proficiency. So if you know that I'm successful in whatever the learning intention is, I should be able to check off these 5 things, and you will be confident that I'm proficient in the particular learning intention for that. So wherever you're at in developing your particular courses, your job really is to establish for each one of them essential questions, standards, learning intentions, and success criteria. When those pieces are complete, you're ready to move on to developing common assessments around those essential standards.